All right, so today we're going to go over the muscles of the legs, and we're going to finish up our chart. Now, one thing, I was doing my lesson plans for next week, and I know you'll be super upset, but I forgot I have a whole review practice thing that we're going to do to review the muscles. So your test will not be Monday, it will be Tuesday. All right, so we'll do that review Monday. Does that upset anyone? Are we good? All right, good. So I just didn't want to make sure I didn't upset anyone that you had to study over the weekend. So we'll do the test on Tuesday, not Monday. All right, so I have a whole practice review. I forgot about it. That we'll do Monday, and then your test on muscle anatomy would be Tuesday. Okay, so just to make that clear. All right, so we're going to go over the muscles of the leg today. You're going to work on a packet to review that. And then I have some extra credit, if you get that done, extra credit opportunities for you, all right, at the end that have Halloween themed anatomy things. All right, so I'll give that to you if you get your this packet done on the muscles of the leg that you can choose to do. Okay. All right, so again, I'm going to try to go through these muscles of the leg and the pelvis in the order that they are on your chart, all right, so that you can sort of follow along, all right, to make it easy to, fill in as we go. All right, so the first muscle that is on there is the gluteus maximus. So I need a back view so that we can see that. All right, so this is looking at the back of the leg. All right, so your gluteus maximus is this big butt muscle. Most people know what that one is. Let's do orange today. All right, go ahead. Yes. There you go. All right, so your gluteus maximus obviously is your butt, and it is named for what? Size, right? We talked about that as an example of a big muscle. All right, so that's the gluteus maximus. All right, so that is named for its size. It goes across your butt. All right, all right. Again, big muscle there on the back of, on the posterior side of you. Its job is to work the, I guess we'll call it the thigh or the hip joint. All right, it does something with that. So how can you work the glutes? What do you do to work the glute muscles? What kinds of exercises can you do if you want to work on your butt muscles? This, again, will help us. Go ahead. Okay, yeah, glute bridge. So if you lay on your back, right, and bridge upwards, all right, that works there. You can do it with a squat. It will work your glutes, all right, as part of the squat. So, but it's not the bending down in the squat, it's the standing back up. So remember that most muscles that extend are on the back, and most muscles that flex are on the front. So the gluteus maximus extends the thigh at the hip. So at the hip, when we talk about flex and extend, this is a flex, like raising it up, all right, that's a flex, all right, and then straightening it would be an extend. All right, so this, we're going to talk about the muscle that does that, that's flexing. So straightening your leg back is an extension. So if you really want to work it too, you can hyperextend, like going back like this. Like you have lots of things that you can do that work the glutes that way. All right, but so it's the extension. So if I do a squat, it's not the sitting down, it's the standing back up. All right, that straightening the leg that's going to work the glutes. Okay, so I'll write that underneath here, extending the thigh. All right. So the next one is called the gluteus medius. And this one, it's hard to see on a lot of these unless you look at it on the side. So the gluteus medius muscle, I don't even think I have it on my leggings here, is on the side of the hip. All right, it's like here on the outside. So gluteus maximus is in the back. Gluteus medius is right here on the side of the hip. And it's named for like it's in the middle or medial, right? It's location, all right? Could be size because it's the medium sized muscle. You have the gluteus minimus, but then you have this gluteus medius. So a bunch of things can pull into how that's named. But the gluteus medius is here on the outside of the hip, okay? So if I were to show it to you, this is the outside of the hip. No, this is the, yep. This is the outside. All right, so this is gluteus medius. All right, so it would be like here on the outside, okay, of the hip, okay? All right, so its job, all right, is to do, again with the hip, its job is to abduct the hip, right? So if I step out, or like the first part of my, my jumping jack, all right, to step out, all right, is the gluteus medius. It's out here. So this one, you've ever done that exercise where you lay on your leg and you just like raise it up, right? That's going to work here on the outside of the hip, all right? That's the gluteus medius, okay? So it abducts the thigh. Okay, on the outside. Okay? All right, so those are two that are like here on the sort of the back and the side of the hip. All right? And then we move to, is the next one ilio? All right. All right, so the next one is called, I know it's spelled strangely. The P in the word is silent, so it's the iliopsoas muscle. All right, is how you say that. The P is silent. All right, iliopsoas. How is that named? Let's just look at that first part. Ilio refers to what? It's a part of something that we've learned before. What's your ilium? Yes, it's part of your pelvis, right? So it's the part that sticks out in your pelvis. So it's called ilio, that part, it tells you location because it starts up here on the ilium, all right? And it goes right down here like into the groin area. So it really goes over top of your pelvis area, and it's actually a couple different muscles, but it's right here. So I'm gonna see, here's your ilium, right? That flared part that sticks out. And here, right here, that's the iliopsoas muscle. So it's like literally up here in your pelvis, above our thigh, right? It goes over your pelvis. Okay? So and you can see it's a couple different muscles, but ladies. All right, so iliopsoas muscle on the hip, named for the ilium, okay, on the pelvis. All right, so it's named for its location. This one does the opposite of the gluteus maximus. So where the gluteus maximus extends the thigh at the hip, remember the flexors are on the front. So the iliopsoas flexes the thigh at the hip. So when I do that squat, bending down is going to be the iliopsoas here, bending my thigh. Standing up is the gluteus maximus. Okay, so it does the opposite of the gluteus maximus. So flexes the hip or the leg. Okay? All right, so flexing here in this case would be like going like this. All right, that's the iliopsoas, it's up here. All right, it pulls it up. All right, and the gluteus maximus then extends. Okay? All right, so that's, again, right up here on the pelvis. Okay? All right, and then before we move down into the thighs, I guess, so this sort of moves down to thighs. These muscles right here, all right, this is on the inside of the thigh. These are your adductor muscles. It is a group of muscles. We're just going to know them as your adductors. So these are, so your iliopsoas is up here, like in your pelvis. Your adductors are down here on your thigh. All right, they go like from the groin down. All right, so they're on the inside of your leg. All right, and obviously they're going to do the opposite of the gluteus medius. So we talked about the gluteus medius out here that abducts, and the adductors are obviously going to adduct the thigh. They're going to bring it back. Okay, so they do opposite. So far, those 4 muscles that we just talked about, they all do opposites, right? Iliopsoas is up here, flexes the thigh at the hip, gluteus maximus extends. Gluteus medius abducts the thigh, the adductors adduct the thigh. Okay, so they're on the inside. So like to work those, you can also go on the side, you can do like clamshells and different things like that. But you can work, and you can like put your underside of your leg and lift up. All right, that works the inside of the leg. All right, those adductors. Okay, so those are all 4 there in the hip, and I picked them because they all do like those opposite things. Okay, adduct and abduct, and flex and extend. Okay, question on any of those 4? Okay. So now we're going to move down into the thigh itself. All right, so the next 3 I have on the thigh, and then the last 4 that are on the chart are all like on the lower leg, like underneath the knee. Okay. All right, so this, I'll go in order. All right, so it starts with your hamstrings. So where are your hamstrings? Are they on the front of your leg or on the back of your leg? Yeah, so we're pointing there. So these are on the back of your leg. All right, so these are called the hamstrings. Now, this is a weird way, all right, to name them. All right, so these are actually not named by any of our conventions that we talked about, our 7 different ways to name muscles. This is not how they're named. We get this from butchers. All right, they're called hamstrings because when you eat ham, you're eating the buttocks, all right, of the pig. All right, so that's where you get ham. And butchers would take these muscles and use them to hang up the ham, which is where they got hamstrings. All right, so when they would cure the meat in the butcher shop, they would use those muscles to hang it, and that's where we get hamstrings from. So is it named by location or anything like that? No. Okay, so that's how we get the name hamstrings, all right, in the back here. All right, so it is actually 3 muscles. It is a group of 3 muscles. So you're going to have to maybe add this to your chart. I do want you to know the names of the 3 muscles as part of your hamstrings. We're going to do the same with the quadriceps. That is 4 muscles, and I want you to be able to name those muscles. Okay? So as a group, on the back, you can see here that it's got like 3 muscles back here, but as a group, these are the hamstrings. So before I go over before I go over the names of them that I want you to know, what do they do? What do the hamstring muscles do? I'll give you a hint. They're going to move something with the knee. What are they going to do to the knee? Because the knee only flexes and extends. That's it. What do the hamstrings do? A lot of people get this confused a lot. Which one? Flex, right? So they flex the knee, okay? So if you want to work them, you can work that machine, right? You just do this, right? That works your hamstrings, all right? So they flex the knee. Here is that exception that I talked about. I said flexors are typically on the front of your body. But here's an example where a flexor is on the back. Why? Why is it switched from everything else?
Because it bends a different direction.
Right, when you flex the knee, it bends backwards, right? When I flex the elbow, it doesn't bend backwards, it comes in towards your body. So the knee is sort of an exception to the rule of flexors on the front, extensors on the back, but that's because the knee bends opposite ways. So this is the flexor, all right, back here of the knee, the hamstring. So as a whole, all 3 of those muscles are going to do the same thing. Okay, the hamstrings as a whole flex the knee. That's what you need to know. All right, so that's pretty easy. All right, flexes the knee, all 3 of them. So now let's talk about the 3 muscles here. All right, so if you are going from the inside out, all right, so I think I did this. I think this is the outside. So gluteus medius is out here. All right, this is the inside. All right, so this is inside. This is outside. Okay, of the leg. So starting here in this first muscle, I'm going to label them A, B, C. All right, so that I have room to write. So going from inside out, A, B, C muscles. All right, so the A muscle here is called the biceps femoris. Okay, now we can say how this one is named. Biceps tells us 2 attachments, and femoris tells us it's on the femur, right? All right. You just have to remember it's on the back of the femur. You're going to see it, again, it's a little confusing because there's one on the front of the femur on the quadriceps called the rectus femoris. This is the biceps femoris, okay? So that's this muscle here. It's part of the hamstrings. And then I have 2 here, and I remember them because they're in alphabetical order from here. All right, this one is called the semimembranosus. And then C is called the semitendinosus. All right, so M comes before T in alphabetical order. All right, so again, if you are going from inside out, I don't know if you can see them all on my leggings here, but it would be biceps femoris, and then the middle one is semimembranosus, and the outside one is a semitendinosus. Okay, so going biceps femoris, semimembranosus, semitendinosus, from the inside of the leg out on both sides. Biceps, semimembranosus, semitendinosus. All right, in order. So those are the 3 muscles of the hamstrings. So you're just going to have to be able to identify those 3 muscles, but they all do the same thing, right? They all flex the knee as part of the hamstrings. Okay? All right, so you're sort of have to add that. And again, if you looked at that coloring packet that's in the folder somewhere, they're in there. Okay? All right, so those are the hamstrings. Questions about that? Okay? All right, the next muscle that is on your list is called the sartorius. This is on the front, and this is this little ribbon-like muscle that starts on the outside of the leg and then goes across the thigh and ends up on the inside of your knee. Okay, so this muscle right here is the sartorius. So it doesn't even show it on my leggings, but it would go like on the outside here and it comes down, all right? It sort of crosses over and then goes down the inside of the knee. All right, but it's this little ribbon-like muscle, and apparently that's how it was named, for ribbon-like. It's named sort of for what it does apparently, but it helps too. Like if I were to take my leg and cross it over the other, all right, the sartorius would do that. So I don't know if we can really say that, but I guess it helps with adduction, all right, moving it inward, but it helps cross your legs, all right? So crossing one leg over the other, they say it's called the tailor's muscle because apparently that's how tailors would sit when they fixed your clothing, all right? So that's, I don't know, they call it the ribbon muscle, but that's, so I'll just put here crosses legs. All right, so it's this little muscle on the front. This is on the front of your thigh. All right, goes like, you're gonna see here the quads are next. All right, so it goes like right over top of those quads. Okay, it starts on the outside of your hip, crosses and ends up down on the inside of your knee. Okay, so it starts on the outside, ends on the inside. Just this little strip. Okay, that's the sartorius muscle. All right, and then we move to the quadriceps. So, as a whole, they're called quadriceps femoris because they have 4 attachments or 4 muscles. All right, so this is this big group here. All right, all of this, these are the quads or quadriceps femoris. And what do they do as a whole? We're going to talk about the names of the 4 muscles here. But what do these muscles do as a whole? What do they do together? Because they're going to do the opposite of the hamstrings. The hamstrings flex, so these quads are going to do what? extend the knee, right? So you should feel that. If you extend, if you tighten those, all right? When you extend the knee or straighten your knee, you should feel those, all right? Those are your quads. All right, so they extend the knee. Okay, so together, they extend the knee. We are going to name the 4 muscles of the quads, right? They're called the quads because there's 4 of them. Again, we're going to know them like the hamstrings. I want you to know the 4 muscles of the quads, okay? So I'll try to do this in a different color because I realize it may be a little hard to see on here. I'm just going to do my numbers this time. 1, 2, and I'm going to show you 3 here and 4, okay? And I'll show you why I have it dotted in a second. All right, so the big muscle definitely here in the center of the quads, all right? It's by far the biggest muscle. I can see that here, all right? I've got this big muscle that goes down. It's got a tendon here that goes over top my kneecap, right? This big muscle right here, all right, is the one that's like front and center of the quads. That is called the rectus femoris. All right, so number 1 is the rectus femoris. All right, so rectus, all right, the fibers run this way, and it's on the femur. All right, so that's by far the biggest muscle of the quads. The other 3 muscles all start with the word vastus. All right, and I'm just going to show them to you. If you start on the outside, so if this muscle right here on the outside, that is called the vastus lateralis, because it's lateral. There's actually one underneath the rectus femoris. That's why I have that little dotted line at number 3. If I took this rectus femoris off, there would be another muscle under here. This is the 4th one. So I can't see it right now because it's underneath that. That's called the vastus intermedius. And then the one here on the inside is called the vastus medialis because it's medial. So remember, medial means more towards the midline. Lateral means towards the outside. All right, so the 3 other muscles that are underneath this are vastus medialis, vastus intermedius in the middle, and vastus lateralis on the outside. Okay? So number 2 is on the outside, so that is vastus lateralis. Number 3 is underneath this one. All right, so I'll just put here under. All right, that is vastus intermedius. And then number 4, all right, vastus medialis. Okay, so you can see all 4 of those muscles of the quads. Okay. So, just to show you, again, if this is, if these are defined, so I've got a field hockey player here, picture, and you can see, like, the outline, like, I can see, like, almost the definition, of where, like, this is the vastus lateralis, here in the middle is the rectus femoris, and then I can see, like, the vastus medialis there, all right, so you can see definition. Again, if someone has strong quads, strong thighs, you can actually see the separation of those 4 muscles of the quads. Okay? So they all do the same thing. All right? They extend the knee. Okay? All right, questions about those? Because that's thigh and hips, basically. Okay? All right, so now we're going to move down to the lower leg. All right, so we have sort of 2 muscles on the front, 2 muscles on the back, all right, to know. And these may be a little bit easier to figure out where they are. Again, I'll try to go over them in order. All right, so the first one I have is tibialis anterior. Name for what? I think we used this when we went around and gave examples. It's named for where? What? Location, right? It literally tells you where this muscle is. right? It's on the tibia, and it's on the front of the tibia. So this is your shin muscle, basically, all right? So I can definitely see that. So I've got this big tendon that goes down, that holds the kneecap in place, right here, down the front, and the tibialis anterior there is right there, all right, beside it, all right? So it's your shin muscle right there that you can feel, all right, sticking out there, all right? That's the tibialis anterior, all right? So right here, right, this muscle, oops. All right, so it's this muscle right here. All right, so this muscle is one that if you've ever dealt with shin splints, you get little tears in this muscle, all right, and it causes pain like when you run, when you walk, all right, so it's just like from pounding and you get little tears and it hurts, all right, as you run, all right, it's typically a track type injury, all right, that they get shin splints a lot, all right, from pounding on the track. All right, so that's the tibialis anterior right here. All right, it's on the front of the tibia. All right, now what does it do? Again, it's going to do something with the ankle. All right, so you should be able to feel it when you pull your ankle back, all right, towards your shin. All right, that's the tibialis anterior. You should feel it sticking out and harden when you do that. So what motion is that when I pull my ankles back? This is a movement that we've talked about. Dorsiflexion, correct. So it pulls the ankles back, right, dorsally. All right, so this is dorsiflexes the ankle. Okay, that's tibialis anterior. The foot, the ankle, however you want to say that. Okay. All right, and the next one is called the fibularis muscles, and they're a group of muscles, all right? But if you remember our bones, the tibia goes down, and then the fibula is on the outside of the legs, okay? So the fibularis muscles are going to be on the outside, so here is the fibularis right here, all right, on the outside. All right, so if I go, again, I'll show you on my leggings. All right, so this is the tibialis anterior. If I go beside that, I've got a group of muscles here on the outside of my legs, right? Those are fibularis muscles, okay? So tibialis is more towards the front. If I go on the sides, because that's where the fibula is, I see that fibularis muscle, okay? So that's on the side of the leg, all right? So you can see it there on the side. And my S didn't come up. There you go, fibularis. All right, so these will do the opposite. They do a couple things, but these will plantar flex your foot. You're gonna see a bunch of them plantar flex. And it helps with that. Remember the movements we talked about, invert and evert your foot. All right, turning your foot inside and out. That the fibularis does that also. So I'm gonna say invert and evert the foot. All right, so turning that ankle in and out. All right, that's going to work the fibularis muscles on the outside. Okay, inversion and eversion. Okay, so that's sort of on the front and the sides of the lower leg. All right, and then we move to the back. All right, so we've got your big sort of calf muscle, and then we have a muscle that's underneath that. All right, so I'll talk about both of those. So this muscle right here, I'm going to write it on this side just because I have more room, is called the gastrocnemius. All right, so this one, I'm going to say it's named for its shape, maybe. What does the prefix gastro refer to? Anyone know what that means? Gastro refers to your belly, your stomach, okay? So why in the world would this be called the belly muscle? I don't know, I guess it's fat like a stomach, okay? A big calf muscle, so I guess it's like shape, I don't know. But that's why they named it, all right? It's a big calf muscle, a big belly, all right? So it's pretty thick, all right? You can grab it, all right? Back here, all right? So it's actually has two heads to it also, but you can see it's sort of divided there, but all together, that's your gastrocnemius. All right, and this definitely plantar flexes the foot. So you stand on your tiptoes, right? Point your foot. You should definitely feel that get hard, okay? All right, or work. So this definitely plantar flexes. So you can work on this muscle by just doing calf raises. All right, stand on your tiptoes. All right, you're gonna work that gastrocnemius muscle. All right, so just before I get to the next muscle underneath there, notice that this has a tendon, all right, that goes down from the gastrocnemius and goes down the whole way down to that calcaneus and attaches, right, because tendons will attach muscle to bone. And this is called the calcaneal tendon, or what most of us call your Achilles tendon. All right, so you probably know what your Achilles tendon is. You can feel it. Right, that thing that sticks out back here at your ankle, that is a tendon that's hooking that. You can see it here on my leggings, right? It goes the whole way down, and I can feel that right there, right? So that's the gastrocnemius, and then it's got a tendon there that I can feel, all right? That hooks it onto that heel bone, right? The calcaneus. So it goes like under there and keeps it in place, okay? And I don't know if you follow football, how many have we seen lately that have Achilles tendon ruptures, and you can see, right, it's sort of like when that ruptures and it like goes up into their, you know, their thigh or their the bottom of their leg, all right, their calf muscle, right, it's not pretty, okay? So I don't know why we've had this rash of Achilles tendons tears here recently in football, okay? So that's that. All right, that's attaching that gastrocnemius down. And then the only other muscle here, the last muscle, is underneath that, so where that Achilles tendon is, sort of underneath there in the lower leg. This is called the soleus. Named, I think, because it's attached to the sole of your foot. Okay, so it goes underneath there, so I got the location. All right, and this is a helper muscle to the gastrocnemius, so this will also plantar flex the foot. So these both do the same thing. All right, both, again, so this is the helper muscle. This is the one that's like the prime mover, and this is the helper, that synergist muscle. Okay, and they both plantar flex the foot. Okay, so those are all of the muscles that you're going to be tested on Tuesday. You will have pictures like this that you will have to identify what's the name of the muscle. And you will have like matching sections where you have to match the name of the muscle to its function. Okay, so you need to know their functions and be able to identify where they are, right, on Tuesday. Okay, questions on any of them that you want me to go over, you want to know where they are. Okay, so we're going to get together, so let me show you the two things that we're going to do today. I'll just include the extra credit. So in today's folder, we have a packet on the legs, all right, muscles of the leg. I'm going to get you together with someone to do this. This is very similar to things we did with like the skeletal system. All right, so let me just explain this. This part here tells you, notice what it says, where its origin is and where its insertion is, and it does go over the action. So this, it sort of describes the muscle. So it starts on the ilium here, ends on the femur, and its job is to flex the trunk at the thigh. You're going to name that muscle. Okay, so you can name it here. I have little things down here if you want to name it here. All right, it's the same thing. So all this is here in the first part is it's sort of describing the muscle. Here's like a description. Here it tells you where it starts, where it ends, and here's its function. All right, so you're going to name those muscles. All right, now, number 4 should be pretty obvious because notice here it has number 4 and it has a group of 4 muscles: rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, vastus intermedius. I want you to name that whole group. So number 4 is the name of that group of muscles. Okay? 5 and 6 should be more self-explanatory. Okay? And then there's a whole bunch of pictures. You're going to name those muscles. Again, you can name them here beside the lines, or you can do it in the, oh, I don't even have a box on that one. All right, and then there's more. It tells you again a description of the muscle. Again, here is the group: biceps femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus. You're going to name that group. All right, and there's that labeling. All right, and then there's some matching. It tells you like a little bit. Here's forms the buttock. What muscle does that? All right, and I have X's through 1s. You don't have to do. All right, and then this is just some general things about muscles that we've talked about. So things like identify 3 muscles where you get injections. So if you go to the nurse, the doctor, and they need to give you a shot, where are places that we typically get shots? You're going to name 3 muscles or 3 groups of muscles where you typically would get shots. Okay, like what muscle does it go into? Here, we talked about some of these. Most of the muscle lies where to the part of the body that it moves. And here's the thing that I've talked about. Most flexor muscles are where, and most extensor muscles are where, except for, all right, we just talked about that. All right, there's an exception to that. So that's just some general description of muscles. All right, so I'm going to get you together with someone to work on this. All right, so this is number 1, and turn this in. The second part today, like I said, once you get that done, if you want, and I'm going to say this is extra credit, I have 2 different things. So I have, and I'm going to get out some other skeletons. I have what's wrong with these skeletons. You may use some of the pictures that I have here. I have a dog skeleton, all right, and it says what's wrong with this skeleton, how would you make it better? I've got some other animal skeletons. You're going to tell me what's wrong. I'm going to get out, I actually have, like here at Halloween, you can buy skeletons, so I have some skeletons in the back I'll pull out, and you can tell me what's wrong with those skeletons. All right, so you may do that for extra credit. I also have this, if you want to do some coloring, you may pick here, there are 11 different like things here, and it says, for if you choose skull 1, it says, on the frontal bone, draw a red rose. On the parietal bones, draw a black spider web. On the temporal bones, color it yellow. On the sphenoid bones, color them pink. And you'll get like a sort of the Day of the Dead skeletons when you're all said and done. All right, or a skull. So if you want to do that, I have lots of skull pictures here that you can color. Okay, and you can pick whichever one you want to do. All right, there's like 11 different ones, all right, to do. You can choose the one you like. All right, so I'm going to let it up to you as options. You can do a comparing skeleton thing, like what's wrong with those skeletons, or you can do one of these, and you can do both. I don't care. All right, but first do your muscles of the leg packet, okay, and get that done. All right, and then with whatever time is left, you may choose to do one of these. Again, you don't have to. It is for extra credit. Okay, but I figured do some little Halloween-y stuff, all right, with it, okay? Questions? All right, so let's do 10 o'clock appointment. Find your 10 o'clock appointment. That's who you're working with on the muscles of the leg packet, all right? And then you can do whatever you want after that, okay?